sometimes let the competition get the best of them. Incidents such as the beating of Giants fan Brian Stowe at the Dodgers opening day in 2011 and looting by Lakers fans after the team's 2009 championship served as a wake-up call.
We as a community, sports, government, and law enforcement have come together to address fan behavior issues at our local arenas and stadiums.
In an effort to create a more secure and enjoyable game day experience for fans, the LA Sports Council drafted a Southern California Fan Code of Conduct. The idea came from a fan behavior summit hosted by the Sports Council in June 2011.
Approximately 100 venue, team, and law enforcement personnel attended a day-long retreat at which it became clear that every venue, regardless of the events it hosts, is impacted by fan behavior issues.
This couldn't be more timely as we go out and begin to work the other NFL owners to bring a team back here.
The task force extracted from the existing codes 10 common principles that all the venues agreed were the most important.
The Code of Conduct includes 10 fan guidelines. Among those are rules that ban intoxication or excessive alcohol consumption, fighting or other threatening behavior, and scalping tickets at the venue. Although most venues and teams already have their own codes of conduct, this is the first time a common code, which can subject violators to ejection or arrest, will be implemented at numerous facilities in the region. All local sports venues with capacities of 10,000 or more have implemented the easy-to-understand Code of Conduct. Fans could soon begin seeing the code posted on venue websites and on their game day programs. I'm Cindy San Luis for LA This Week.
The task force also plans to produce public service announcements featuring celebrities in support of this effort. Unruly and even violent behavior can also happen at school, with bullies showing off just how tough they are. But some professional tough guys, WWE wrestlers, say bullying is anything but tough. Rasha Goel takes us to Markham Middle School, where bullying got the smackdown.
They are normally seen on television, but today, WWE superstars Mark Henry and Albert Del Rio are part of the Be a Star campaign. The word star standing for show, tolerance, and respect to educate students about bullying.
We all have to work together to stop this. If you're big, if you're strong, if you're smart, be a leader, be a star.
And we believe that if you work hard, if you study hard, if you treat people with respect, if you respect yourself, you could reach for the stars and follow your dreams.
WWE and the Creative Coalition, a nonprofit advocacy group, launched the Anti-Bullying Alliance, Be a Star, to prevent bullying from happening in schools and communities.
The tough guy never makes it in the end. If you were to use that to help somebody, it goes a lot longer, it lasts a lot longer.
Students were reminded that bullying occurs in various forms.
Bullying doesn't just happen on the schoolyard. It can happen over email, text messages, on GChat, on Facebook. But bullying is not okay.
Bullying is bad, and if it's somebody getting bullied, stop it or say something.
A message that hopefully all these kids will take home. From Los Angeles, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
It's hard to ignore the renaissance taking place on the historic Broadway corridor downtown. Once vacant storefronts are now being replaced by new businesses. The latest, a restaurant committed to locally grown and sustainable food.
LA's Broadway was the heart of the city's retail and entertainment industry in the 1920s and 1930s. It was home to silent movie theaters and the streetcar. Councilmember Jose Huizar believes it can be that way again, thanks to new businesses like Alma Restaurant that are choosing to make Broadway home.
Yes, well, this is exciting. This is yet another addition to our Bringing Back Broadway initiative. This is an initiative that we started 4 years ago. It's a 10-year plan, but we hope to bring back lots of businesses, theaters, hotels, to once again make Broadway a place that people come to shop and be entertained.
Chef Ari Tamor, who's had restaurants in both San Francisco and Santa Monica, chose Broadway for his new restaurant, Alma, for the area's eclectic vibe and youthful energy.
It's a great It's a great new community of young artists and craftsmen and people trying to make a name for themselves and serve the community as well.
Alma's menu will focus on locally grown, farm-fresh items, and the restaurant will be intimate, seating less than 3 dozen people at a time.
All of our produce comes from the Santa Monica, Venice, and Hollywood farmers markets. All our meat is local. All of our fish comes from area waters as well.
Tamor is just one of a long list of business owners who believe in what's happening on Broadway. The recent openings of the burger joint Umamakatessen, the newly renovated Palace Theater, and the soon-to-open Ross Dress for Less are all signs that Broadway is once again ready for the spotlight.
Having chefs like the one here at Alma announce they're coming here, other top chefs are going to say, well, hey, there must be something happening on Broadway. Why is he locating there? And it's really a domino effect.
And what better name for a restaurant than Alma, or the heart, the soul in Spanish, as a whole new generation in a new millennium is again finding the heart and soul of Broadway.
Figaro Bistro, LA Brewing Company, and Two Boots Pizza have also recently opened for business on Broadway. Council members offer a warm welcome back for an ailing colleague. A longtime South LA small business owner is killed in a hit and run. And can you help the city identify historically significant places in the city? These stories and more in City Beat.
A noticeably thinner Councilman Bill Rosendahl returned to his seat in council chambers at City Hall for the first time since starting treatment for cancer. Rosendahl led the Pledge of Allegiance and later received a standing ovation from his council colleagues and those in the council audience.
People have brought food to the house. People have prayed with me. People have sung with me.
Rosendahl announced last month that he was diagnosed with cancer of the pelvic area. He received radiation treatment shortly after his diagnosis and recently started chemotherapy. The city is offering a $50,000 reward for information that will lead to the arrest and conviction of the hit-and-run driver who left 78-year-old Jimmy Thomas lying injured on the street. Thomas died 7 days later at a local hospital. Police say Thomas was crossing Western Avenue near 55th Street at around noon on Monday, June 18th, when he was struck by a vehicle heading south on Western.
Anyone that's so callous that they can drive over an individual in the street and keep driving, they could commit other crimes and be just as dangerous to other people.
You didn't have to leave my husband in the street. My husband had a locksmith business. In all probability, you knew it. He's been in this community over 40 years.
Detectives believe the hit-and-run vehicle is possibly a dark-colored 2000 through 2005 Ford Escape driven by a black man in his 30s. Anyone with information is asked to contact detectives at 323-421-2500. The Silver Lake staircases, the Hollywood sign, and this temple and even this tree in Little Tokyo are all designated historic cultural landmarks. And now the city's conducting its first ever comprehensive effort called Survey LA to identify places in the city with historical significance that may not already be well known. Community members with an expertise in a specific neighborhood who can help identify the city's historical places can go to myhistoricla.org. Councilmember Eric Garcetti joined residents recently to celebrate the installation of 107 streetlights in Elysian Valley in the area bounded by Gale Street, Riverside Drive, Riverdale Avenue, and the Los Angeles River. The lighting project will improve public safety in the neighborhood, which was previously unlit. The new LED streetlights, which cost $2.8 million in local, state, and federal dollars, use approximately 40% less energy than the city's older streetlights.
The Port Tech Expo, which celebrates new technological advances in the port and shipping industry, was recently held in San Pedro. Rasha Goel has more on this year's Newsmaker.
It's cutting-edge technology at its best. 2 electric-powered trucks were unveiled at this year's 3rd annual Port Tech Expo in San Pedro. All thanks to a public and private partnership, including the California Energy Commission and an independent company called TransPower, among others.
TransPower's zero-emission, heavy-duty electric vehicles are an excellent example of a technology that benefits the environment, uses clean energy, and by being capable of hauling 80,000 pounds, helps keep port container traffic moving sustainably.
Experts in the field say these types of vehicles play a significant role in reducing pollution. The old standard diesel trucks, on the other hand, were seen as a cause of the problem.
California medium and heavy-duty vehicles are less than 2% of our total vehicle fleet population, but consume about 16% of all fuel. The air pollution from this fuel directly impacts public health.
The big question, what about charging stations? How do we keep these trucks running for a long time? Well, I spoke to the creator of the new technology who informed me that these trucks are self-contained.
That silver box is our charging station. It's unique. It's a unique development. It's a 70 kilowatt charger. 70 kilowatts being the power level we can achieve with each of these chargers. And all we need to do is basically take a power cable from a fairly standard wall outlet and plug it into this box, and we can recharge the batteries in as little as 2 hours.
And TransPower CEO Mike Simon is excited about these vehicles and the benefits they have.
They eliminate pollution entirely and carbon and greenhouse gases. So that's the number one benefit. But the second benefit, which is equally important, is they eliminate fuel consumption entirely. These vehicles don't use any fuel.
And these shiny new electric vehicles, well, they aren't actually new. These zero-emission trucks, believe it or not, were actually retrofitted diesel trucks. From San Pedro, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
Officials say the electric truck drive technology used in these trucks can be applied to other vehicles, such as school buses, and could potentially help create as many as 1,500 jobs in Southern California. Kids who live in a South Los Angeles housing development have had to play on old rickety playground equipment for years. But now, for the first time in over a decade, several playgrounds at the development are getting an upgrade that will make them fun and safe once again for kids and their families to enjoy.
It's out with the old as a worker runs a circular saw through this rusty old jungle gym. And it's in with the new as several playgrounds on the grounds of the Pueblo del Rio housing development in South Los Angeles finally get a makeover for the first time in over a decade.
I hope you've had a chance to play on some of the 5 playgrounds that have already been completed. So this is the 6th and last one that's going to be complete here on this site, and we're going to open it sometime around the end of September, beginning of October.
Pueblo del Rio, built in 1942, is owned and operated by the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. The over 300 children under the age of 13 who live at the 660-unit housing development have had to play on this and similar rundown play equipment for years. Now they and the more than 2,000 teens and adults who also live at Pueblo del Rio will be able to enjoy new play areas and other recreational amenities.
This is a community of hundreds of families who rely on basketball courts and playgrounds and recreation centers, so it's wonderful that we're able to make this space over.
The city is investing $2.4 million for the improvement project. Councilwoman Jan Perry worked with the Department of Recreation and Parks and the Housing Authority to make the equipment update possible. And piece by piece, the playground comes apart, soon to be replaced by safe, quality recreational equipment all the residents, the young and the young at heart, can enjoy.
And in addition to replacing play equipment, the makeover will include the installation of outdoor exercise equipment, basketball court renovations, as well as upgrades to the recreation center itself. In this week's list of things to do, the Sound of Music sing-along, making your own udon noodles, and a concert commemorating an important anniversary.
It's one of Hollywood Bowl's most popular events, the Sound of Music Sing-Along, where the beloved classic plays on the theater's outdoor movie screen, and audience members sing along to their favorite songs, including Doe a Deer and Edelweiss. This year it's happening on Saturday, September 22nd at 7:30 p.m. But a pre-show parade featuring audience members in Sound of Music-themed costumes starts at 6 p.m. The Hollywood Bowl is located at 2301 North Highland Avenue in Hollywood. For tickets and details, go to hollywoodbowl.com. For another hands-on interactive thing to do, if you like Japanese udon noodles, why not learn how to make it yourself at an udon making class on Saturday, September 22nd, hosted by Food Story, which regularly holds cooking and tasting events with a focus on Japanese food. This interactive and fun 3-hour workshop will teach you all you need to know to make your own udon noodles and the dipping sauce. The class will be held from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Food Story Kitchen Studio at 460 South Spring Street, Suite 609 downtown. To purchase tickets, go to udon.eventb.com. Music Untold, KUSC Classical Radio 91.5 FM, and the Colburn Foundation present a concert on Saturday, September 22nd to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. The concert begins at 7:30 p.m. with a pre-show lecture at 6:30 p.m. The show at AT&T Center Theater at 1139 South Hill Street will feature, among others, tenor George Shirley, baritone Donnie Ray Albert, and composer-pianist Richard Thompson. Details can be found at musicuntold.com. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do.
LA's Pakistani Americans recently held a parade to celebrate their homeland's independence. As Gil Reyes reports, they also celebrated being American.
In a city famous for its diversity, this marked a first. LA's inaugural Pakistan Day Parade brought Southland Sunni Muslims to Exposition Park.
To be with Americans, American Pakistanis, to support America and Pakistan, of course, and it's just lovely being here. It's a lovely atmosphere. It's just the feel of having a lot of people you know, people from your part of the world as well.
This year marks the 65th anniversary of Pakistan's independence from Great Britain. Recently, the war on terror has cast a critical eye on Pakistan and its neighbor to the north, Afghanistan. But local South Asians we spoke to say they have far more in common with American ideals, excelling in fields such as medicine, business, and the arts.
It's about good people. We have good people, good educated people, people here who love America because we're Americans, but again, we're home away from home. I'm sure the U.S. is a country of immigrants, and you have people come from all places. And I'm sure they also take part in these kinds of parades, and it's lovely being here.
We're just celebrating Pakistan Day, celebrating that we're all coming together as a community with other communities. It's so exciting to be here.
This multicultural celebration included ragtime music from New Orleans, also trotting horses reminiscent of Mexico. They helped celebrate the diversity of Los Angeles in a sea of green and white, the colors of Pakistan's flag. In Exposition Park, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
An estimated 150,000 people of Pakistani descent live in California, with the highest concentrations in the Bay Area and here in Southern California. That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
College is hard. Damn, those books are heavy. My sport is football, but my passion is education. Right up here. So every year, I take promising high schoolers on a college tour. Lights there, darks there. To show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Find out how you can live United for education. Give, advocate, volunteer. Go to liveunited.org.
Do you wear this?
G'day, Troy McCubbin from North Hollywood. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
sergeants. I need the ETAs of the members. If you are in your office, please report to the council chambers. Members, if you're in your office, please report so that we can start today's council meeting. Mr. Labange.
Yeah, Mr. President, can I just say hello to James Okazaki? James Okazaki is right here, retired, great traffic engineer. Give him a hand. Good job, James.
Well, if you're going to do that, can I say hello to Gary Miyazaki, greatest photographer in the world? Give Gary a round of applause. You let him take your pictures, Labange, you look 10 years younger. No, he's got a little machine that takes all of the wrinkles out. He's the guy to go see. I need one more member. Mr. City Attorney, can we substitute or can we designate a substitute member? And whenever we're one person short, a VOC can fill that void. I think a VOC does better. That's your legal opinion. Miss Perry's and Mr. Cardenas' time of arrival. Sergeant, come on and talk to me. I just want to know about Miss Perry and Mr. Carter. Okay, Madam Clerk, I believe we have a quorum. Would you please call the roll?
Alarcon, Buscaino, Cardenas, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Caress, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zine, Weston, 11 members present, a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Englander moves, Mr. Weezer seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Krikorian moves, Labange seconds.
Mr. President, today is Tuesday, and now would be the time for the flag salute.
Okay, if I could ask everyone in council chambers to please rise, and we'll be led by Joe Buscaino.
It's my honor. Thank you, Mr. President. Kindly put your right hand over your heart, face the flag. Together, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. With that said, Madam Clerk, why don't we go through the agenda? If we could go through the first section or the first item.
Item 1 is an item notice for public hearing.
Cards?
Yes, cards on item 1A.
Okay. Members? And it's just on 1A, so we can vote on the remaining items?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, let's go through the next section.
Items 2 through 7 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, Mr. Zine wants to hold item 2. Okay, he wants to continue item 2 for 2 weeks. Madam Clerk, that would bring us to what date?
October 2nd.
Okay, without objection. Members, any other specials? Mr. Garcetti?
3.
Mr. Garcetti, item 3. On the remaining items, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that brings us to our next section, items 8 through 21, I believe.
Items 8 through 21 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Mr. Reyes?
Continue item 21, please.
Mr. Reyes wants to continue item 21.
To Friday?
To this Friday?
Yes.
And that would be what date, Madam Clerk?
September 21st.
Members, any other specials? Any other specials? Mr. Huizar.
Can we hold number 8 on the desk, please?
We'll hold item 8 on the desk for Mr. Huizar. Do we have cards?
Cards on items 15, 16, and 18.
Okay.
And number 9.
Let's hold those items.
And Mr. President, there's a request to continue item 11 to October 3rd.
Without objection. Mr. Krikorian.
Please, Mr. President.
14. Okay, on the remaining items, let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that brings us where?
On the supplemental agenda, item 22 is an item for which public hearing has been held, but the committee report has not been circulated yet, so you wish to hold that on the desk?
I'll hold that until we get the report. So that brings us where?
To items called special.
Okay, Mr. Zine, if you're ready, we can move forward with your presentation. Mr. Zine has the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And if I could please have our honoree come forward. Sergeant, where are you? What are you looking at? You're the sergeant of the day. I want you right over here. This is a rather unusual presentation, colleagues. Sergeant Samaya of the Los Angeles Police Department, who's to his own peril was involved in a rather lengthy investigation, and I'll give you the details of that. Those of us in law enforcement know exactly what this is about, and hopefully the public will appreciate the dedication of this member of the Los Angeles Police Department. Pursuant to 9/11, the police department, the city of Los Angeles, as well as the entire nation as a whole, made the fight against terrorism and the threats of terrorism a top priority. Los Angeles Police Department is fully committed to investigating and bringing to justice those groups that actively engage in supporting and financing terrorism across the globe. Between 2002 and 2006, Sergeant standing next to me, serial 31193, currently assigned to Mission Division Patrol, was part of a multi-jurisdiction investigation involving the illegal transfer of money to Iran. Sergeant Samaya, being a Farsi speaker, was an undercover officer at that time, infiltrated a group suspected of financing terrorism activity through the sale of narcotics. The group was heavily active in the Middle East, operating clandestine in the western part of the United States, exclusively in the city of Los Angeles. As part of an undercover and highly dangerous operation, Sergeant Samaya met with 9 suspected Iranian nationals. This network had been actively involved in money laundering, tax evasion, and structuring of terrorism. Through a 5-month undercover investigation, he was able to gather powerful evidence to support state charges against this terrorist network. Pursuant to his undercover operations, the California Attorney General's office issued multiple arrests and search warrants for 9 individuals that were linked to this terrorist organization. After the service of the warrants, Sergeant Samaya assisted investigators in deciphering the large amounts of documents recovered during this undercover investigation. This evidence would later be a critical component to support ties to international terrorist groups. Through the sale of opium, these groups were able to channel and financially support worldwide terrorist activities in partnership with the Iranian government. After a lengthy courtroom testimony and powerful evidence gathered by the sergeant, all 9 suspects were found guilty in court. 3 of these defendants appealed their convictions to the California Court of Appeals. And in 2006, the appellate court judge unanimously held the convictions and published their decision. These significant decisions became undisputed case law, establishing precedents for similar cases throughout the United States. And the Los Angeles City Council would like to commend you for your dedication, investigative skills, attention, duty, professionalism, and most of all, loyalty to the Los Angeles Police Department's commitment to eradicate worldwide terrorism and to protect and serve the people of this region of Southern California. And I have a certificate of recognition to you on behalf of the grateful city, members of the Los Angeles City Council. Thank you for your hard work, dedication, professionalism, and a long and complicated anti-terrorist money laundering investigation. Through your efforts, the defendants were convicted in Superior Court. Their convictions were upheld through appeal. This case set precedent for trying similar cases in the future. Thank you for your tremendous work. This is signed by the City Council, the Mayor, and the entire city family. And I know there was peril to your life. I know you received threats on your life. And you're obviously a courageous member of the Los Angeles Police Department with 4 hash marks, over 20 years of dedicated service. And looking at your distinguished expert, you do know how to protect yourself.
Yes, sir.
So with that,
Sergeant, congratulations. Let's please give him a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
And my colleagues on the council know that police work is dangerous, and when you're working an undercover investigation, you have no backup. You are your backup. The microphone is yours. I see your lieutenant here. Good morning, sir. And your family's here. Obviously, proud and recognized of your accomplishments. And you want to do it in Farsi or English for us? There you go.
I wanted to thank Councilman Zine, who spearheaded this. This was a long investigation. I was just one member of the department that was involved in this. But I think in light of recent events throughout the world, the impact of this case is becoming more evident every day. We put a good dent in the support of terrorist activities worldwide. Most exclusively, they were being targeted against the U.S. and her allies. I want to thank the City Council, Mr. Zine, his staff, the department, my chain of command that allowed me to do what I did, and I want to thank everybody for their presence today and your dedicated service. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Again, thank you. Thank you so much, Sergeant. Okay, Madam Clerk, before we go to our next presentation, let's take up item 8. There are no cards on this item, no speakers in the queue. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, Ms. Perry, are you ready? Mr. Cardenas, when you have a moment.
Didn't want that to ruin the picture. Thank you. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now, today it is my pleasure to welcome Janet Stokes. Janet Stokes is the chief executive of the Film Advisory Board to Los Angeles City Council, and I wanted to highlight some of her important work of her agency. The Film Advisory Board was founded in 1975 by Elaine Blythe to recognize and promote quality family entertainment and educational materials for a broader audience through its Award of Excellence tribute. The Award of Excellence seal is recognized throughout the world as a symbol of quality entertainment, products that are suitable for viewing by children and families. To be considered, a film must not contain gratuitous, profane language, violence, or sexual content. Past recipients of the Award of Excellence include Ted Turner, Liza Minnelli, Bob Hope, Yao Ming, and Barack Obama. The Motion Picture Association of America has since created their own rating system modeled after the Film Advisory Board's, making the Film Advisory Board a leader when it comes to supporting families and the entertainment industry. So I wanted to thank Janet Stokes for her continued work with the advisory board and ask her to say a few words on behalf of the board and also introduce her colleague whom she has brought with her today.
I want you to know that I'm absolutely thrilled to be so honored by such a prestigious, important organization in county fulfillments. With me, I introduce Larry Coven, who happens to be our entertainment director, and he's very talented. And this is a very important organization simply because it makes children's families upfront and important to education, to entertainment, which is critical today. And I want to thank you, the Chamber, for giving us this opportunity and my recognition overseeing this organization, and I thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Give me a hug. Yes, I'm going to. We're going to go in the back.
Thank you.
Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you so very much. Okay, it's Madam Clerk. Is the report in on item 22? Is the report in? Okay, so let's, do we have cards on 22?
No cards. Public hearings
Okay,
held.
let's again move to item 22. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And we can also move to item 9, called special by Mr. Walsh. John Walsh, HollywoodHighland.org. If you please come forward.
Thank you. I'm speaking on the Green Retrofit and Workforce Program. It's an excellent program. And you do some very good work here. And thank you for mentioning our website. We said we went viral on Friday. In fact, we had 86,500 requests. Why? 86,500. Vote for the Green Retrofit. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you. No speakers in the queue. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, is Mr. Garcetti? Okay, give me another item then. Okay, number 18. Is this called special by Sean Murphy? Mr. Murphy, come forward. Item 18. Good to see you, Mr. Murphy.
Good to see you too, Mr. President. I'm for this item. Thank you.
That's it, Sean? You're getting faster, I tell you. Let's, Madam Clerk, prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, Mr. Garcetti, are you ready with item 3?
I am. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you. And I want to start by thanking my great colleague who has been a real partner in all of our business tax reform efforts here, Mitch Englander, who we co-presented this together. Colleagues, today I also want to thank the Mayor's Office, who's been a strong supporter. We have, through many years, offered a strong signal that Los Angeles is open for business and a place that we want new businesses to start. I urge your support today on this ordinance. In 2010, the City Council passed a new business tax holiday. It built on a business tax holiday effort that we have, I think, dating back as far back as 2003, if I'm not mistaken. But essentially, the first 3 years of your business tax for a new business here in Los Angeles, you don't have to pay. And it was set to expire at the end of this year. But today we're here to vote on extending this holiday into the end of 2015 in order to tell LA businesses that LA is open for business and we want you to locate here. As many of you know, the unemployment rate here is almost 50% higher than the national average, about 13%. And the unemployment rate in the city alone is reason for us to act quickly and create and retain jobs here in Los Angeles. You know, we can't afford to rely on a city business tax, a city tax that taxes you whether you make money or not. I mean, think about that for a second. You can lose money and we tax you. We need to compete for jobs. We need to be business friendly and get out there. We need jobs in LA and we need them now. And this is a great signal that LA is open for business. And we're doing that by exempting these new businesses from the highest tax rate in the county. The city benefits in the long run, just as we saw with recent work that Mr. Englander and I did on new car sales. We had 95 car dealers that left this town. We had $5 million left from those 50 dealers that are here. And yet every car dealer that came back was giving us $1 million in sales tax. It's similar here. In Hollywood, we were able to waive the gross receipts tax for entertainment companies not so long ago, and I was able to locate companies like TV Guide, companies like Technicolor, with hundreds of employees who pay parking tax, utility tax, sales tax. Our property values went up. And so when we get business friendly, we actually make more money. I urge your support for this. Thank you again to Mitch Englander and to the Mayor's Office for their support moving forward. Let's keep businesses open and coming to Los Angeles.
Mr. Englander, followed by Mr. Krikorian.
Great, thank you. And thank you to my colleague, Eric Garcetti, who we've partnered with on these numerous times on different business tax reform legislation. This isn't enough. This is one step. We really have to eliminate the gross receipts tax once and for all. We've got to figure out a way to phase it out. We've got to be more business friendly. Time and time again, we're listed as the most unfriendly business city in California by the Cosmont cost of doing business study that's done every year, and many others. That say it's just too difficult. And it's not just the business tax structure, it's the bureaucracy and getting permits and getting businesses open. Small and local businesses are the backbone of our local economy. We co-authored this motion nearly a year ago. And when we did that, many asked, why are you doing it now? It doesn't expire for another year and a half. Well, when businesses are looking to locate and sign leases or buy property to move, it takes them more than simply moving like you would a home. Then they've got to invest a lot of capital, and they've got to make those plans, and they want certainty. So one thing they've always asked for, and as a small business owner myself, I've known for many years, the certainty part of what your costs are going to be and fixed costs over a long period of time are critically important because you're bottom line driven. And so we have to give them that certainty. The fact that this has taken just about a year to get done and get the studies back and show that we've got to yet do it again because it's going to expire is unfortunate that it takes this long to get this stuff done. So I ask for your aye vote. We've got to support businesses. This just is one step closer to finally eliminating once and for all the business tax. Thank you.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like the CAO's representatives to come forward, please.
Melissa Krantz, Office of the CAO.
Good morning. I have a few questions about, I just received the actual CAO report on this matter today, so I have a few follow-up questions that I wanted to ask about this because we've now had a couple of years of this policy to consider and to analyze in determining whether or not it's cost-effective to move forward with an extension of it. So, as I understand it, in the period of 2010 to 2012, there were 11,000 new businesses that took advantage of this tax incentive, and 15,600 total businesses. Is that right?
That is correct. There is some overlap. What you have is a lot of businesses who claim the first-year exemption in their second year of tax filing.
Okay, so that difference of 4,000 or so are businesses that were new but are now in the second year?
Correct.
All right. So how many existing Los Angeles businesses that have been established here for more than 2 or 3 years have taken advantage of this tax break?
Well, so previously, before the exemption, which extended the measure to businesses with gross receipts in excess of $500,000, the ordinance applied to those businesses with gross receipts less than that. So if you look at Chart 1, you can see the number of businesses, and those are all the previous ones were in blue, and those are the ones who were getting the exemption, the new business exemption, prior to the extension.
Okay. Are existing businesses able to take advantage of this, or is this targeted only to new businesses?
It's targeted to new businesses that establish themselves within the city between 2010 and 2012. They get to claim up to 3 years of that exemption.
So of the 11,000 new businesses that took advantage of this in 2010, 2012, what was the total number of new businesses that were formed in the city during that period?
That was the 1,500.
No. The total number of new businesses that were formed
that's the
between
11,000.
2010 and 2012.
That's the 11,000.
Okay. How many new businesses were formed in this city in the comparable period preceding that?
You know, I don't have historical data.
So we don't know whether more or less than 11,000 new businesses were formed in the 2 years preceding this period,
That
right?
is correct.
Okay. How much are we projected to lose in total business tax revenue because of this tax incentive?
Okay, now if you're just referring to the entire exemption, we had a 3-year analysis, and that was the $30 million. However, just the proposed extension of the 3-year exemption plus the gross receipts, that was an impact of $16.8 million annually. That would expect to increase and decrease with gross receipts taxes in general.
Okay, so $30 million loss in business taxes that was partially offset by some other revenues.
Correct.
We know that there was $8 million, for example, in transient occupancy tax.
Correct, and that speaks to, you know, having targeted reform, because this $8.2 million from the transient occupancy tax could be partially pointed to the formation of 4 new hotels.
Right.
With a lot of rooms, and that generated
And would
that.
it be fair to say that hotels make their siting decisions based on geographical location and make long-term capital investments that would not be influenced by a 3-year tax holiday? Is that a fair assumption to make?
You know, honestly, I can't speak to that. We've had an analysis, conflicting analysis with regards to examining whether to get rid of the gross receipts.
Okay. Can you say how many new businesses would have started in the last 2 years from 2010 to 2012 if the council had not enacted this?
No, that cannot be determined.
Okay. Can you determine whether the city has gained or lost revenues as a result of this?
No, that cannot be determined.
Okay. Is this tax incentive targeted in any way towards specific industries that generate more or less other kinds of tax revenues?
No, this is a rather broad measure, which is why our office would support a temporary implementation. With anything permanent, we would expect it be targeted.
Okay. So, members, I think, you know, some of the steps that we've taken over the last few years, for example, the car dealership waiver that Mr. Englander and Mr. Garcetti spearheaded, which I think is a tremendous addition to other kinds of revenues that the city has generated. That was a great step. This particular measure, in my view, is the wrong way to go. And the reason is that businesses that have been here working hard, the kinds of small businesses that Mr. Englander described that form the backbone of our economy, businesses that have been working hard for 20 years in this city, now see new businesses with a tax waiver coming in and setting up next to them and competing against them. First of all, that's not fair. Second, it hurts our existing business base. Third, we don't know whether this is generating a single penny in new tax revenues or creating a single new job, because there's been no analysis that's been done that's demonstrated whether or not any of these 11,000 businesses would have started here with or without this tax incentive. Not a single bit of analysis. So to extend this now, I think we're really buying a pig in a poke. We're giving up $30 million in revenues without any indication that this has gained a single penny in revenues. In fact, we may have lost, without a single indication that it's created a new job, and without a bit of targeting towards the kinds of industries that we believe will be most impacted in their siting decisions by this kind of an incentive. So I think, we have some experience in this now. It's been going for a few years. I think until we have some of that analysis, it would be premature to extend this another 2 years or 3 years or any period of time until, in fact, in November of 2011, when we moved forward with this, the Council approved a motion asking for the CAO to come back and report on the efficacy of this very tax break. The report that we have today is not that. I don't think that's what the Council expected to get. It does provide some limited information to the extent that it's available, but it's not an economic analysis of whether or not this tax holiday is making any difference or not. I think when we considered this the first time, one of the concerns that I had was if we grant a 3-year tax holiday to a business for whom business taxes are an essential factor in making a siting decision, then that business is probably likely to go to a place, as Mr. Englander said, where there's no gross receipts tax. They're going to make their siting decision based on getting a forever tax holiday, not a 3-year tax holiday. So the number of businesses that fit within that narrow spectrum, that a 3-year holiday is going to make a difference in where they site, where they set up, is to me an awfully great risk to take for those handful of businesses for whom that's the critical factor, to give up $30 million in business tax revenues. If we're going to do this across the board and have continued business tax reform that affects our existing businesses, our good corporate citizens who are here paying their taxes year in and year out, who are employing people right here in Los Angeles right now, then by all means, let's do it. But this idea of giving away, tax revenue to businesses, many of whom likely would be here with or without this, is, in my view, at best premature. It's a good concept, but it's premature until we have a proper economic analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Alarcon.
Council members, it was my pleasure to introduce the business tax holiday several years ago in working with Mayor Villaraigosa to do so. And Mr. Krikorian, I agree with you. We need much greater analysis. But I believe the greatest problem we would have is to do nothing. And so sometimes as elected officials, we don't have all the information that we can have about a particular subject. And so you got to go with your hunches. And that's not to suggest that your hunches are right or wrong. It's just to say that you have to make decisions. And in this case, my hunch is that that these businesses were created. And when you look at the graph on page 2, that indicates there was almost a doubling of the businesses during the period from 2011 to 2012, and when in terms of new businesses coming to Los Angeles, that is such a sharp increase that I have to believe that they came in as a result of the business tax holiday. Whether they provide the maximum economic benefit, the kind of analysis that you're speaking of, I don't know. But I think the fact is, with the unemployment rates as they are, with the need for job creation in our city, with the tumult that we have been hearing for many, many years from the business community about how Los Angeles is the most expensive place to operate a business, I believe we have to take some chances. So to some extent, I believe that your analysis is correct, Mr. Krikorian. I think we should do a far better job of specifying the benefits that are derived from this notion. And let me say that Mr. Krikorian and I, having served in the legislature, when we had to consider enterprise zone programs, one of the things that killed the enterprise zone programs in many communities was the failure of communities that received enterprise zone credits to demonstrate the actual benefit of those credits. And that's why there was a cap on the number of enterprise zone credits, because if you could demonstrate the benefit of the enterprise zone credits, and you'd want to do it all over the state. But in fact, many jurisdictions took advantage of the program but never did the analysis to prove that the program worked. So I agree with Mr. Krikorian that we need to do far better analysis, but I also believe that this is something that we need to continue because my hunch is that it is helpful, and I would only hope that as we continue it, we hone in on those businesses that provide the kinds of benefits that Mr. Krikorian is talking about in terms of stimulating not just job creation, but quality job creation with workers getting good pay, with good benefits, and proving that the money that they are spending is coming back to the city of Los Angeles. So I absolutely concur with the extension. I believe that it is essentially a hunch that, and based on tentative information, that it is providing somewhat dramatic benefits to the city of Los Angeles in terms of business creation and job creation. But I also believe that if we're going to continue to defend this over the long run, and if we're going to expand it into other categories of businesses, which I have, by the way, introduced a motion to do, I think we need to do a far more detailed analysis.
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And, sometimes we take economic analysis through this council as if it is economic analysis, but it doesn't really provide that nexus between what we want to accomplish. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Krikorian, I didn't hear your last comment. Were you suggesting that we hold this, that we continue it, that we send it back to committee to get that economic analysis?
At minimum, I think we should hold this. I'm not prepared to vote for this today at all. At minimum, I think we should hold it. I'd like to consider the budget implications of this, given that we're giving up $30 million in revenues. I think it should be considered in budget and finance at minimum.
Yeah, and I think unless there's suddenly any other deadline or timeline that we're working with, the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee would like to review this in his committee. I think that would make sense for us, and I would support that if that would be a motion made by the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Mr. Englander.
Thank you. This is a good discussion. It's a vibrant discussion, and I think there's a lot of good points that are made, but what we really have to look at is the whole picture of this. First, we started this in 2001. So the real question is, how many businesses are in now the system in the city of LA since 2001 that are now beyond the tax holidays they took advantage of to come here and are now paying into the system? To recognize money that would be coming in from a credit we're giving out, it's really difficult, if not impossible, to do that as being suggested, to say, well, it's $5 or $10 or $15 million we're not going to be getting. We're not going to be getting it if they don't move here at all. And so how many are now paying into the system? How many are there that are started since 2001 when we first implemented the first business tax credit holiday under Mayor Hahn at the time? And how are they still in business and growing? Those are the things we'd have to look at. We also have a lot of indirect benefits that have never been weighed in terms of how many jobs have been created, the sales tax generation, the local purchasing, new startups and relocations that have now come here. And I agree. They don't look at it and say, well, it's one tax credit, and so I'm going to go to a city that doesn't have a business tax. They look at the totality of the bottom line. That's what businesses look at. How much is it going to cost in terms of rent per square foot? How much is it going to cost? What are the demographics? What is my market? What are we looking at in terms of locations, in total cost of water and power and all those other things? They look at all costs. And this is just yet one additional cost that they would have to pay during the startup phases, which is the most expensive, knowing full well that if they're here and they stay in business after that period of time, they're going to be paying in the system, so we can then compete. As the largest in terms of manufacturing and M-zone properties, in my district we have the largest in the entire city of LA. And a lot of those warehouses were just years ago, during good economic times, there were banners that said help wanted, machinists wanted. Now they say for lease. And we're constantly going after companies proactively where we go door to door and talk about ways we can help them. We've come up with enterprise zones, and we go out there and do training and giving them. It's not the unfair competitive advantage that's spoken about with new business startups, because we go to existing business and we talk about the film credits and not only the auto dealers but also multimedia credits and financial investment credits, all the small business loans and micro loans that we've worked with the chambers and others to bring to Los Angeles, the consolidated categories that we are able to go out there and share with them as well. And so it's working with the existing businesses, but trying to bring in during tough economic times. We need jobs here in Los Angeles. We need to bring local companies here. And it's not an unfair competitive advantage. It's money we would never get if they're not going to be here. And then we help them. And we help them with job training. We help them, and we've partnered with schools. So we have internships and apprenticeship programs. And then they hire locally so they can stay here and buy homes here and raise families here. We've got to invest here. In the last 20 years, we've gained 1 million people in population, and we've lost over 250,000 jobs here. It's not working. And so we all agree we have to eliminate business taxes completely. It's a $430 million hit to our budget. We get that. And so we've got to phase out a plan to do that. I agree. That's the entire cost of the fire department. And so we've got to get there, and I support it. But we've got to do these other incremental steps to make sure that we're competitive and we can bring in the new businesses. So I urge you to vote for this because it's going to expire. Thank you.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you. A couple of things. First, Mr. Alarcon mentioned chart number 1 on page 2 and indicated that that shows a doubling of new businesses. It simply doesn't. It shows a doubling of the number of new applicants for the new business exemption, and the reason for that is because we expanded the availability of it and lifted the cap. It used to be eligible small businesses only. Now it's eligible, anybody's eligible, regardless of the cap. So the significant increase in eligibility is what accounts for 100% of that increase. So we can't look at a chart like this, which I think is, honestly kind of misleading in this kind of a discussion, and suggest that there's been a spike in business activity because of this measure. There hasn't been. We have zero evidence, as we just heard from the CAO's office, we have zero evidence that there's been any increase in business activity because of this tax incentive. We look at the kind of industries that seem to be affected, and we have $8 million in new transient occupancy tax. That means hotels are taking advantage of this. Hotels aren't making their decision on where to site based on whether or not they're going to get a 3-year tax holiday. They're in it for the long haul. They have a 50-year time horizon, and they're basing their decisions on where people want to stay, not what the business tax is going to be over the next 3 years in the short term. Mr. Englander talked about this program being in place since 2001, but the difference is that in 2001, this program applied to small businesses, startups of people in Los Angeles who wanted to start a business in Los Angeles and needed a break for that first couple of years so that they would be willing to take the risk, innovate, invest their own money in a new business. What it is now is it's an incentive to ask some large business in Santa Monica to relocate its headquarters in Los Angeles. If you want to do that, if you think that's good policy, then that's what we should do. But we should at least talk about that being the purpose of this, not to incentivize small businesses, because that's not what this is doing. In fact, I've had major employers, significant employers in downtown Los Angeles who've been here for decades, who have complained about the fact that now all of a sudden a competing business that's currently located a stone's throw away in Santa Monica is now going to move across the border into Los Angeles and for 3 years have an immense competitive advantage over this long-time Los Angeles business because they're not going to have to pay taxes. So, I think that at minimum, it's fine to go on hunches, Mr. Alarcon, but I'm not going to roll the dice on $30 million based on a hunch. When this council specifically provided, when we authorized this policy in the first place, we specifically said that we wanted a report back to prove that it works. We don't have that report. We have a report that says we don't know. We don't know if we're getting more revenues. We don't know if we're getting less revenues. We don't know if it creates jobs. We don't know if it doesn't create jobs. Without that, we just simply, I'm sorry, we simply can't move forward with a policy that is going to affect tens of millions of dollars of revenues at the same time that we're trying to maximize every other kind of revenue on the backs of the people who live here, on the long-term businesses who've been here forever. We can't continue to put that burden on their backs while at the same time we're saying, well, let's, give $30 million to businesses that may, exist in other cities in the hopes that they may come here. I just think it's while it might turn out to be good policy, we don't have a bit of information in front of us today to show that it is. And so let's not vote on the bumper sticker slogan. Let's vote on the policy that's in front of us, the evidence that's in front of us. Let's at least hold this for now. If you'd like, I'd be happy to take it for further consideration in Budget and Finance. Thank you, Mr. Huizar, for that suggestion. But if we're not going to do that, I'm going to vote against this policy today.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. There's two lines that stand out in this report. One is this 3-year extension is set to expire December 31st, 2012. And the other line is offsetting revenues have been identified, but whether the revenue resulted in a net gain to the city cannot be determined. The data and findings are provided in greater detail in the discussion below. So, colleagues, we have a window. It's now September. The chair of the committee that oversees our budget and finance is willing to try to develop a greater level of substance in how we look at impacts. But I also believe we have an image issue. I also believe we have to make ourselves available to investors, to businesses, continue to nurture the small business, medium-sized business, use these tools as a way to continue to promote jobs. So these are real issues in my mind. So I don't see any harm in allowing for the committee chair can, given everything he has in front of him, look at this policy and allow it to come back to the council before the deadline and provide us a greater sense of insight as to what this really means in terms of real revenue for the city, in terms of its impact in growing businesses, cultivating those businesses. So it's important that in these dire times that we continue to be competitive, has been used before for my colleagues here. But the competitive issue here is about what's real. How are we going to be posturing ourselves in a manner that does add up to real dollars? The report cannot do it. This report is real clear as to what it does. And given its information, I would stand to support the chair to allow for finer analysis, hopefully come back with some policy language that speaks to the goal. Let's capture what's strong. Let's understand what's weak and move forward on a policy level that's going to have a true difference for our revenue base and impact our budget in a positive manner, because those questions cannot be answered at this stage. So I would stand to support a continuance if the chair would like, out of respect to his role, and also to reinforce the positives that have been brought forth by my colleagues in pushing forth this policy. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, and thank you, colleagues. This is a very good discussion and an important one, and one we've had a number of times here. And thank you, Mr. Reyes, as chair of the committee that did take this up. I want to address a few different things. And I'm frustrated, just like Mr. Krikorian is, about research. It's something that's been a frustration over about 11 years because there is no definitive. It would be nice if we were able to have definitive answers as to whether or not we have a link between revenues and some of the policies we made. But while we don't have and may never have the definitive answer of a causation, we have extremely strong, extremely compelling evidence. And I'm going to walk through the logic and a couple of things that have been said and some of that evidence. First of all, to Mr. Reyes' point, we could delay, and to Mr. Krikorian's, and I have no personal problem. You made a very compelling argument as to the reason why I want to do comprehensive and complete business tax reform, so it's for new and old and everybody. I really think this is a bad tax. When you look at the evidence, Los Angeles has 165,000 fewer jobs over the last 30 years. We've added 820,000 people. LA County has added people and jobs. There's something inside the city that is sick, and it is the highest gross receipts tax. Now, people are making business decisions now. It's a minimum of 6 months. In some ways, we're beginning to lose that deadline period, but people won't make the decision December 31st. They're making a decision of whether they're going to start paying December 31st or not, January 1st. And the importance of doing that now is if we have that gap, those folks will not make the decision to come here. The report could have been written in a couple different ways, and it's a good report. But we could have also written a report that said, you know, the flaw in it to me, with all respect, is that the 30 million, there's an assumption the 30 million will be here if we don't do this today. And we have no evidence of that either. I don't think the CLA has that evidence. Mr. Krikorian doesn't have that evidence. I don't. We don't have the evidence that that $30 million that we're quote-unquote losing is coming here. What I do have is very strong evidence and anecdotal conversations and real-life experiences with a company like Nielsen that said, by the way, I'm not coming without this business tax holiday to Hollywood, with 500 jobs averaging over $80,000 per jobs that sustained a restaurant district that popped up, a hotel down the block, and much more in the property values by coming here as one of the first headquarters to return to Hollywood. We couldn't have quantified that, and this report or a report like this would have assumed they would have been here anyways. They would not have come. They were looking at Glendale, they were looking at Burbank, and Chicago. They said this was the decision-making factor for them. I can talk about a number of examples, but my time is short. In terms of evidence of revenues, there's two things here. There's evidence of revenues, which is important for you as Budget and Finance Chair and for all of us as council members, but evidence of jobs. And the evidence is very clear on jobs. We've done 3 of 3 reports by economists who disagree on what we should be doing with different parts of business tax reform, but each one of them says for sure these reductions lead to jobs. Now, the arguments that you gave are very similar to a lot of the criticisms people have given about the state filming tax credit. They say there's no evidence for sure that we have a dollar for dollar back to the revenues. We've talked about this before. In fact, it might be probably to the state somewhat less, let's say 70 cents on the dollars, and when they count that dollar to dollar. But then you had a chief legislative analyst at the state level who also said, look, we just don't feel there is this connection. I know you felt very strong there is. You've known, you've talked to those folks. I was at I was talking to a producer last night who filmed his last movie here in Los Angeles, which is coming out this week, and he's in Atlanta right now. And he said, I wish this state would get it. I wish the LA Times wouldn't write a story about how tax credits are bad when Detroit would never do that about the car industry, New York would never do it about finances, etc. But I know what decision I had to make because of that, and I wasn't even looking for the cheapest one. I don't know what it does to the state budget, but I'll tell you about the 500 jobs I'm creating someplace else. Jobs are created by this, and we have 3 out of 3 economic studies who say there is not just correlation, there is causation of that. Lastly, there's lost leaders in all sorts of businesses. When people say to us, hey, come to T-Mobile 2 years for free, it's not fair to those existing T-Mobile customers, but they do it all the time because it's smart business. And it is smart business for us to do that. 30 years, you're right, a hotel doesn't make a decision based on that in hotels, but we voted in here, and you have as well, for 30 years of TOT because that does give them that ability to make decisions. Different companies will make for different decisions, but this will make the difference. And I'll close with this. We have tried the opposite of this, folks, which is not to have this in place. And we lost 165,000 jobs over 30 years, while the rest of this county added jobs. We have tried the opposite. I would like to see the full package go through, and I'd like to see us do that in a smart way that phase that in over time, over the next 10 or 15 years. It's not politics, it is gospel and belief for me. But this, too, is something that should continue. We will have a gap. We'll have companies that don't come here, and it won't be 30 million that we will somehow have returned. We cannot count on that $30 million. I can't say that it will be zero. Companies will come here despite. But I guarantee you there are companies, big companies by the way, it's not just small ones, that will make that decision based on our tax structure. We almost lost some companies recently from the financial sector because of that. I can tell you Shopzilla decided to stay when we did something for the internet space. And I'm talking to companies right now that are looking at LA. And this is one straw on that camel's back.
If we
but I
could
believe
wrap
it's
it
one
up.
that the evidence clearly shows will break it if we don't do it.
Mr. Alarcon.
One of the things that I don't know if it's been said, but if it has been said, I want to reiterate it. And that's there's a huge assumption that these businesses were going to come here anyway. There's no guarantee that these businesses would have come. In fact, many of these businesses, if not all of them, came because of the business tax exemption. I'm not suggesting that all of them came, but in any case, they could have had choices to move into 90 other jurisdictions in the county of Los Angeles. But they came here, and so first of all, to assume that we lost $30 million in tax revenue is a worse analysis than the report that is being criticized, because we can't make that assumption without doing another report. Secondly, with regard to the other businesses that deserve consideration of tax relief from the business tax, I was the first to introduce a motion to direct us to move us in the direction of developing a program to eliminate the business tax for those businesses. Now, it's been in committee for a year and a half, and I share your concern. I would like to see tax relief for the other businesses that have been here, that have struggled in Los Angeles, that have created jobs for many, many years. Why can't they get some of this benefit too? At the same time, I would argue that before we do a unilateral elimination of the business tax, we should hone in on those businesses that contribute beyond their own bottom line. And so, for example, why would we want to invest in businesses that create poverty in our community? Why would we want to give business taxes to businesses that historically violate the laws of our community, that don't contribute much in the way of taxes to our community? We want to incentivize the good businesses that provide good wages, good benefits, and that have a causation that results in revolving of the dollars in our economy. Those should be the first priorities. And I agree that they should be the first priorities of this business tax relief. But the simplest way to get this thing going is to give a tax relief to new businesses to come into Los Angeles, because we want to send a message that LA is a good place to do business. I think our first consideration was the high rate of unemployment. We wanted to bring new businesses in to create new jobs. So let's not lose sight of that. But in terms of the general business tax relief, I'm all for moving forward with that agenda. That's why I introduced the motion in, I believe it was early 2011. So, but let's not, as Mr. Garcetti quotes many times, let's not let the perfect get in the way of the good. I believe the continuation of this tax credit will be good for Los Angeles, especially for the individual workers who will have a job where they otherwise would be sitting at home or standing in the unemployment lines.
Okay, members, the reason why I want to kind of put this item on hold, and we'll come back to it in a minute. We've had a group of people that have been here all day for one item, and I don't want to I didn't anticipate that this debate was going to take place. So if, again, Mr. City Attorney, I want to put this item on hold or on the table and do item 15. Before you go, Ms. Perry, John Walsh has a speaker card. Mr. Walsh, let him speak first and then bring the group up. Because because I want you guys to be able to leave. Come on, John.
We just want to say we want John Walsh blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Francis Hashimoto Plaza is an excellent idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Come forward, Ms. Perry.
Come on, everybody come up. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to say a few words about a woman who has affected all of our lives in very positive ways, and her name is Francis Hashimoto. This motion, and we've provided a substitute motion that's entitled Substitute Item 15, is to rename the intersection of Azusa Street and 2nd Street as Francis Hashimoto Plaza. Let me tell you why she's so special. Not only is she the chief executive officer of the Mikawaya Japanese Pastry Company, not only is she the founder of Mochi Ice Cream, the signature product for Mikawaya, she is a graduate of the University of Southern California. She started her career as an elementary school teacher and went into the family business full-time. And in 1970, she became the CEO. This company has been making Japanese confections since 1910 here in Los Angeles. Ms. Hashimoto has great passion for her community and has served many organizations and many posts. From 1994 to 2008, she served as president of the Little Tokyo Business Association. And during her tenure, the Business Association was revitalized and continues to proudly serve the community to this day. She has arranged many delegation exchanges between our country and the country of Japan and fundraised for Nisei Week for many, many years and lobbied the city and county government on behalf of Little Tokyo again. She continues to collaborate with many, many Japanese organizations and recently received from the government of Japan in recognition for her efforts in promoting U.S.-Japan relations the Order of the Rising Sun, Gold and Silver Rays. She was the first female general chairperson of the Nisei Week Festival in 1982. And in 1990, Ms. Hashimoto reinvented the festival by introducing more entertainment and highlighting the rich cultural traditions of Japan. The entertainment attracted more participants, more spectators, and gave everyone the opportunity to discover Little Tokyo and the Japanese culture. So in recognition of Francis Hashimoto's remarkable career and her extraordinary contributions to the cultural life of our city, it is appropriate that we honor her by naming the intersection of Azusa Street and 2nd Street Francis Hashimoto Plaza. And I'll step aside for now and let some of her very close friends and colleagues say a few words about her.
I thought you had one person that was going to speak on behalf of the group.
All right, one person will speak on behalf of the group. Thank you.
Mr. Weezer wants to speak as well.
My name is James Okazaki. The City Council has been gracious in the past in allowing the community to recognize the leaders in our community. I remember Ellison S. Onizuka Street, which is the former Weller Court, and Councilman Richard Alacon and Councilman Tom Lavange were personally involved in helping me rename San Pedro Street to Judge John Iso Street. We've also have a walkway called Gilbert Lindsay Walkway. And Frances, in my personal opinion, who I have known for over 30 years, and some of these members in the community have known her since earlier times when she was at USC and so forth, I personally consider her a local hero of a contemporary time comparable to Ellison Onizuka and Judge John Iso Street. So I hope that you would all support the community's request to rename a part of a spine of Little Tokyo. It's called the Spine of Little Tokyo, which is a walkway that connects 1st Street to 3rd Street, part of Little Tokyo. And this particular street segment, Azusa Street, between 2nd and the Japanese American Japanese Culture and Community Center, is a very important spine of that walkway in Little Tokyo. So this is very appropriate to name this particular link Francis Hashimoto Plaza. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Weezer.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor for me to stand up and support this. I had known Frances for some time when I was on the school board, and there was some LAUSD activity with Little Tokyo. Everyone would say, go talk to Frances. And she's certainly someone who has made Little Tokyo what it is, given her involvement in her business. And her business has been known through many regions for many years. As well, we all at one point or another may have eaten her product, whether we know it or not, at a Japanese restaurant. But I also wanted to mention that she went down the path of many other Japanese Americans. She grew up in Boyle Heights, attended Hollenbach Middle School, Roosevelt High School. That's a path where a lot of Japanese Americans have taken, but they lived a lot of their lives in Little Tokyo. And so this is a great honor for her, but a great honor as well for Little Tokyo and all Japanese Americans to have this plaza named after her, someone who really exemplifies the spirit of Little Tokyo. So really honored to support this now that this is also in the new Council District 14. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let's open the roll on this item, Madam Clerk. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. Weezer, before we go back to item 14, it's my understanding item 16 is a very similar issue. So if we could take up item 16 at this point. And we have 3 speakers, Susan Bradbury Nixon, Stephen Paul, and John Walsh. And I'll limit your remarks to only 1 minute, 1 minute each. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the many council members who worked on and supported the motion to name the intersection of 5th and Flower near the LA Public Library, Ray Bradbury Square. My father would be so proud to be honored in this way. My father moved to LA in 1934 with his family in the middle of the Great Depression. My grandfather was looking for work, and they ended up living in Boyle Heights. After my father graduated from LA High School, there was no money for college, so Daddy found himself several days a week reading anything and everything he could lay his hands on at the Central LA Public Library. As my father mentioned so many times in his lectures, the library was his university. I'm running out of time, but I think my dad's proudest accomplishment was to keep some of LA's struggling libraries open. He would lecture at the libraries for free, with any admission charges going directly to the library. To him, keeping the libraries open with their contents available to everyone was so important. I can't think of a better way to honor my father's memory and legacy than to name the intersection of 5th and Flower near the LA Public Library, Ray Bradbury Square. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. 2 years ago, this council did something rather extraordinary. In order to mark the 90th birthday of literary legend Ray Bradbury, this council declared not just a day in his honor, which is something city councils often do, but a week. As the creator of Ray Bradbury Week, I was incredibly grateful to you, for your blessing allowed me to organize a series of events throughout that week of August 22nd through 28th, all of which were free to the public, that celebrated Ray's life and work. And Ray was able to attend 3 of those events. Sadly, they were his last public appearances. But what wonderful events they were. Not only for the public, but for Ray, who, if he ever had any doubts, learned that week how much the reading public, his fans, but most importantly, this city, loved and revered him. It is absolutely appropriate for an intersection to be named after Ray. For as a writer, he worked at the intersection of genre fiction and literary fiction. As a man, he lived the intersection of being a public artist people loved so much they wanted him in their families, and being a private man with a wonderful wife and 4 loving daughters for whom he was husband and dad. And as an internationally renowned author, he stood at the intersection of being a citizen of the world and a citizen of this municipality, a proud Angelino who loved this city passionately. So I thank you for considering to once again pay Ray Bradbury a great honor, and I urge a yes vote on the motion before you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walsh? Okay, John Walsh?
One minute or two. John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. I just want to point out, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was on Hollywood Boulevard at night. All of a sudden, I saw Ray Bradbury in his wheelchair with about 5 or 6 of his fans. They went to his star. They were doing some sort of taping on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was very late at night, about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That's my last memory of Ray Bradbury. And his star has not collapsed. It's in very good shape compared to some of the other stars. 1 minute, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank the family members for coming out today on this very special day for the City of Los Angeles. And 5th and Flower is actually a very important intersection for the city, but we know that it could only be fitting for someone like Ray Bradbury to have that intersection named after him, considering not only how important it is, but it's right next to our beloved Central Library. And as many of you know, colleagues, earlier this year we lost one of Los Angeles' most accomplished and regarded authors. He passed away June 5th, 2012. And he is survived by a number of children and grandchildren. Sue's here and his son. And Ray Bradbury was not only born in Los Angeles, but he spent a large part of his formative years growing up in Bow Heights on the east side of Los Angeles. He came of age and began writing to make ends meet. He was known to actually do writing on public typewriters in the Central Library. And I'm told he would then walk over to Clifton's cafeteria for some lunch and people watch. And he probably got some ideas in all the characters who were walking by at the time. Many of you probably know him best for his numerous science fiction and other novels, but he also was accomplished on other stories that he wrote, not only his most famous ones. My colleague here, Mr. Koretz, who introduced us to his family members, has a lineup of Bradbury books here most of the time, and I think Mr. Garcetti just borrowed one right now to meet in the interim. But he's not only known for many of his books that he has written, but for really being part of the fabric of the city of L.A. He worked on television, stage, and film, and he wrote numerous episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents and his own The Ray Bradbury Theater. And throughout his life, he was committed to local theater, heading the Pandemonium Theater Company in Los Angeles and the Fremont Center Theater in South Pasadena. He even wrote a screenplay for Moby Dick. And there has been considerable interest in Ray Bradbury Square since my office put forward this past month. Many of you are aware that in 2010, we honored him here in person, and the energy in this chamber was electric, to say the least. And thank you, Councilmember Garcetti, for putting forth that resolution on August of 2010, naming it the Ray Bradbury Week. That was a wonderful, wonderful day. And today we honor and want to make sure that the city that Ray Bradbury loved so much honors him in perpetuity by naming the intersection of 5th and Flower as Ray Bradbury Square. And so in this beautiful City of Angels, we will now forever know that very important intersection after a wonderful man and someone who has taken us to many, many other worlds, and someone who did so much for this great city. Thank you to his family for being here today. And Mr. Weston, if you could permit me with a personal point of privilege and allow Sue, his daughter, to finish up just a little bit of what she brought for us here today.
I'll do it for her, not for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you again. This is just such a wonderful day, and I know Daddy's watching. He loved this city so much. I just wanted to say, along with the LA Public Library, the city of Los Angeles molded Ray Bradbury into the man and writer he was to become. LA featured in several of his stories, like The Pedestrian and The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit. Daddy didn't just take from Los Angeles. He also gave back to the city that he loved. In 1963, he worked with the Board of Supervisors on a rapid transit monorail system, which unfortunately was never approved. He worked as a consultant on the Hollywood and Highland commercial development. My father was always urging more pedestrian-friendly areas and more open-air shopping areas and restaurants with open seating, since our weather is so fantastic. Anyway, thank you, everyone, once again, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you to the family, and thank you, Mr. Huizar. I think you said it all very articulately, and this is Mr. Koretz's book for the record, not mine. He keeps it right here, so your father is with us literally every single day here. The afterword in this is Driving Blind Stories. He said, "In a long life I have never had a driver's license, nor have I learned to drive." And it's funny in a city that is told that we're the king of the car, that he was somebody who did live for that quality of life that is in some ways coming here. It might not be the monorail, though some haven't given up on the monorail, and I have to say it's probably once every 2 months somebody comes up to me and says, "Why not monorails? Ray Bradbury suggests that. Why can't we do that?" And but if you look at some of the places he's asked for us to crisscross this city in above ground rail, because we have such beautiful weather and we have such a gorgeous city, some of those are going to be happening. A Crenshaw line, which is going to break ground. We need to get a north-south line in the San Fernando Valley, the finishing off of the Expo line and the opening of the first half of that this year, and so on and so forth. But it was really the imagination and the magic of Ray Bradbury as a great Angelino, living in the same home in Cheviot Hills for over 50 years, and he's a great citizen who will be with us every single day at that intersection where people will have access to transit, they'll be able to walk, and they'll be able to read the greatest books anywhere on the face of the earth. So thank you so much for what you have given this city, and we're proud to be with you today.
Okay, now let's try to make this official. Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That measure passes. Okay, Mr. Labange says forthwith. Let's go back to item. No, in fact, I'll go to item 1. That was called special for cards, and that's Carlos Serrano, Michael Carrion, John Walsh. John Walsh, come on. Mr. Serrano, if that's you in the back, come forward.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org throughout the world. Number 1, in fact, is concerning nuisance abatement. It's another area where the city is doing a good job. I mean, we have 4 million people in this city, and we have a lot of nuisances. I mean, even I'm considered a nuisance. HollywoodHighlands.org, 85,000 people visited last Friday.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walsh. You're not a nuisance. Okay, Mr. Serrano.
My case continues next week. They told me that.
Let me get the staff guy. Are you asking for another continuance on this item, sir?
Yes, I talked to management. They seem to indicate that they want to continue this for another week.
One more week, okay.
Yes.
All right, without objection. Which one is this, Madam Clerk? Item 1A
Yes,
will be continued 1 week, and what is that date?
September 25th.
Okay, I called Michael Carrion. So, sir, it's been continued. So let's vote on what's left.
There's nothing left.
In fact, there is nothing left. We already voted on those items. Okay, so that brings us back to, we can go to item 14 or we can go to item 3. So let's go back to item, or do you guys want more time? Okay, then we'll go. You want to do 14? Okay, let's do. let's do 14 and then we'll go back to 3. So we're going to do item 14, Mr. Krikorian, held special by Mr. Krikorian.
Yeah,
Where's Labange?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry to have called that special. It was just that the committee report was a report from the chair to approve the capital improvement expenditure program because we didn't have quorum in the committee at the time that it came up. So I just wanted to move approval of the report as it's stated in item 14.
I get that. Okay, we do have some cards from the public. Donna Pearman, John Walsh, Michael Carrion.
Yeah. I don't see, I don't understand why we now have a special gas tax. This is a huge amount of money. I'm not sure exactly where this is coming from, and I realize that things have to be done, but it looks like now all of a sudden you're wanting to spend a lot of money on all these different projects that all of a sudden you're sneaking in there. So you got the cheapest, you got items were about $10,000. One for $250,000 for Mulholland Drive, $644,000 for Soda Street, Rockside, and it comes over $4 million. I mean, I thought we were in a deficit. We even tell the city employees that they have to make concessions, and here you're spending this special gas tax. So I don't think this is right. And in the meantime, you're taking away the video conferencing in Van Nuys. I think this is very wrong. Vote no on it, but I know you won't do that. You'll vote yes. Automatic yes from everything in the city council.
Okay, Mr. Walsh. Okay, Mr. John Walsh passes. I don't see Michael Carrion. So no speakers in the queue on this item. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, that brings us back to item 3. And I just received a request from Ms. Perry to, if we could get Ms. Perry. Okay, Mr. Buscaino. Mr. Krikorian. You were on the queue for item. Do you want to be taken off on item 3?
Kind of lost my train of thought, to tell you the truth.
Happens to me every day.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess there's a couple of. I'll try to remember where I left off. I've really lost the flow of this now, but. Let me just respond to a couple of points, I guess, that Mr. Garcetti made, because I think that the point's certainly well taken that in a general sense, I think reduction of tax burden is going to have can have a positive impact on siting decisions, jobs creation, economic activity as a general matter. The trick is figuring out what the right way to do that is that doesn't end up costing more than it benefits. And I appreciate the reference to the California Film and Television Production Tax Incentive, which I know something about since I authored it, and it was a $500 million tax incentive that was actually carefully targeted in a very precise way to try to influence the production siting decisions that were most susceptible to taxes in terms of to tax benefits in terms of making that decision. And so that's why, for example, network television was not included in it, because that was not as susceptible as cable television and other things. So that incentive was carefully crafted. And Mr. Alarcon made some very good points, I think, about the idea of trying to focus on the businesses that we want to incent to come here. Mr. Englander, and with his new car dealership proposal was a perfect example of that. This is an industry that creates massive amounts of sales tax, and so of course it makes sense to try to give them business tax relief in order to get the offsetting sales tax. But what the CAO report provides on page 5 is that it is roughly projected that less than 20% of firms claiming the NBE fall within categories that have a clear nexus with sales or other use tax revenues. For example, restaurants, retail sales, gasoline stations that produce a lot of sales tax. The remaining 80% fall into service categories. For example, legal services, property management, physician offices, and so on. And those are not the kinds of industries that produce a lot of sales tax revenues. You could say, well, they create jobs. But if they're coming from other places in Southern California, again, there's not a bit of evidence that they're creating any new jobs, or that, current Angelinos might be working for those same businesses where they're currently located in other cities. So, I'm all for continuing to move forward with the path that we're on to incentivize innovation and new business creation and economic activity. I'm all for trying to reduce the tax burden on all of our businesses. But, as the physicians say in the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. And I'm not sure, based on the evidence that's before us today, whether or not this is a policy that is going to hurt more than it helps. And that's the only reason that I can't support it. Now, I'm happy to consider this in Budget and Finance. I just don't know whether we'll have more information available in Budget and Finance than we have today. I'm not prepared to support this. Mr. Garcetti, we had a little bit of a discussion, and Mr. Englander, about maybe some follow-up analysis that might be able to be done on this, and I'm certainly open to hearing about that. I guess the one concern I have is that if we go ahead with an extension, then you've got a potential issue that we won't be able to rescind it later, because that would be the equivalent of a tax increase, and so it would be subject to voter approval. So I welcome your thoughts, and I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, I'll speak.
Yeah.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is a part of a menu of options, and we need to know that they're going to truly work. And I myself have done tax relief for a target industry, and that has been in the area of mutual funds. So, I don't have a problem looking at particular industries and analyzing where we need to stimulate, where we need to push. To the Chair of Budget and Finance, I hear what you're saying, and I actually agree with you. Because there's a bigger picture here. We need to know that this effort's going to help small businesses and the jobs that are actually generated to the city. And we can certainly document that activity. And with the past couple of years where we have given this relief, we now have a foundation on which to build a comparative analysis. We need to know that businesses can operate here and that they will feel welcome here, and that these are issues that go beyond just the business tax. We do have a seemingly hostile business climate. It has to do with zoning. It has to do with logistics. It has to do with goods movement. It has to do with clean air. We need a well-trained workforce. This is an issue of job training and how we link our projects together, those that receive public funding, so that we can actually change the trajectory of people who will be employed in those positions. Our workforce needs to be able to get to and from work. This is an issue of traffic congestion, traffic management, and transportation. That's why the development of the Expo line, the Blue Line, and linking the city together from the east to the west is so critical to the future. And our workforce needs a place to live. And this is an issue of housing. Housing at all income levels in proximity to where people can work and raise their families. So it's a misnomer to say it's just about business tax, because it's not just about business tax. It's all connected, and we all need to understand the bigger picture. And I only hope that our debate is just as vigorous when we get into talking about power and water rate increases. And that's another either pro-business or anti-business conversation that we need to have here on the public record. So I think that's why it's important not to vote incrementally, but to understand what we're voting on today and its long-term implications.
Mr. Reyes.
Colleagues, I apologize. I missed part of the discussion regarding our chair of Budget and Finance. But I do stand to emphasize that we should be making informed decisions, informed policy statements, informed policy directives. Now, I look at this from a distance, and I see that we do need to send much stronger signals that we are a business-friendly city. And that is important. But will we be able to visit this policy in a very short period within your committee in the near future? May I ask that question?
I can certainly make that commitment, Mr. Reyes. The problem is, if we do that in my committee in a quick turnaround, I just don't have any way of knowing whether or not the CAO or anyone else will have further information that they can provide that's different than what there is now. So that might be a question better directed to the CAO or to the makers of the motion. Or
again, from a bigger picture, it doesn't seem like this has been hurting us, but we can't prove it, correct?
I think we have the difficulty of getting the kind of information we need. Now, while finance could, for example, pull out 10 years worth of data on new businesses that have established themselves in the city, there is really no way for us to determine whether those new businesses came here because of our new business exemption programs, which have been in effect since 2001, or they came here regardless. So, even if we're given the opportunity to get more data, I don't know if it would be any more conclusive. We have reported additional receipts that we could definitely identify. We also expect that other receipts are being generated from sales tax and other revenues that we can't necessarily point to. We have had several analyses done with the gross receipts elimination where they all have said that offsetting revenues will be generated. It's just whether those offsetting revenues will be equal to the tax credit. That is something that we cannot determine.
And you don't have the variables that give you parameters that allows you for a conclusive answer.
That is correct.
Okay, so that being said, I think, and understanding all the pushback that I've been getting as to why are not more business friendly, the overwhelming and the overarching message is we have to be more business friendly. The message has to be out there. But I do want to ask for a report back, if possible, to give us a set of parameters that you think would give us a scenario that provides better insight than we have today. If there's anything out there that we have, or if there's something we can create that allows us to capture the type of information that allows us to make better decisions. Because to me it sounds like a breakdown in how we process our information.
We have had several analysis done with regards to the elimination of the gross receipts tax, and those have had conflicting conclusions. So I think we would sort of be in the same position ourselves if we tried to conduct a similar
But does
analysis.
that prevent us from creating an instrument that gets us to a clearer perspective?
Now, I'm sorry. Could you...
Some indicator, some variable that you can work on that allows us to get a clearer picture of what we're trying to understand.
As I said before, I mean, we could have finance pull the new businesses that have been established, but there's, aside from having a survey about whether those businesses would have come here with or without the exemption, that is something that we couldn't necessarily point to. So if you're actually looking for a direct correlation between new businesses being incentivized by the exemption, that is something that we cannot necessarily indicate. So the other criteria is whether it's effective in terms of generating other revenues. And we have other reports that have cited yes, they have generated other economic activity that, results in economic revenue gain to the city. But whether that's, whether that actually offsets the amount of the credit is.
What I'd like to do is just sit down with you, work on a motion that allows us to craft in conjunction with our Budget and Finance Chair and the authors to see if we can close this gap. But big picture point of view, we have to send a stronger message that we are business friendly. We're taking steps. We're already automating many of our procedures in land use, in our zoning process. We're
Mr.
automating.
Reyes, you need to wrap this up.
And I'll be concluding right now. So with that being said, I will support this moving forward. I'm hoping to work with our Chair of Budget and Finance to address the concerns he raises, because they're very real concerns. I just think we need to close this gap. But I will stand to support this effort.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti.
I'll waive.
No, Mr. Garcetti waives. Mr. Englander.
Go quickly. It's just been stated that we need more studies, and I just wanted to share with you that we've commissioned 2 studies, in fact. And so we've had 3 total studies: Dr. Charles Swenson study, the USC Marshall School of Business, the Blue Sky Consulting Group, which also they both resulted in favorable support of another extension. In fact, it was Dr. Swenson who said we need more business tax holiday time and favored an extension. The Milken Institute, which did an independent study behind the sound economic principles and methods used in both studies. And we also had 2 special committees and commissions that were set up on this. And then we added a standing committee on the City Council for Jobs, where this went to and has been vetted for the last year for those who weighed in on it as well. And just wanted to point out the other categories that were in all 3 studies of the revenue we receive categorically from all businesses are also the additional sales tax, property tax, utility tax, license permit and fees, transit occupancy taxes, documented transfer tax, parking user tax, power revenue transfers, parking fines, residential development taxes, and other economic sensitive taxes and assessments that are added to that. So we have studied this to death, although I'm sure there's a lot more information that would be valuable, and I support getting more information back. The bottom line is businesses, if they didn't have to plan and this expires in 90 days, then I would be all for putting it back and saying this isn't urgent, it's not timely. But this does expire in 3 months, and they do have to make plans. And so I leave you with, it reminds you of LAPD's motto, which is to protect and to serve. So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Buscaino.
Call the question.
Okay, the question has been called.
Just go down the street and then also.
Okay, we'll vote on that. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
The question's been called, Mr. President, so now council may vote on that matter before them, which is the ordinance.
Okay, let's prepare to. Ms. Perry?
Yeah, I was going to make another comment, but.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on this now. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
So the ordinance will be held over for a second reading for 1 week.
Okay, Mr. Labange. And I think there was a request to send 14 forthwith.
General public comment, Jacqueline. 22 forthwith for Mr. Parks. Jacqueline Richardson, Sean, is that you, Sean Murphy? And Dollhouse Juan.
Good afternoon. We need to keep the streets paved. We need to keep the libraries open, and no layoffs. I want to tell you about an important event coming up this Saturday at 5 p.m. Archbishop Jose Gomez is going to dedicate the grand reopening of my home parish church. You know all about it. It's on Olympic and La Brea. I hope to see you Saturday. I'm going to go to it.
At the Cathedral Chapel.
Yes, sir.
Dollhouse Dude.
John Perry, she addressed the main issue around this crooked city, housing. She said, people need housing. Isn't that surprising? People need a house near where they work. But you know what? The whole city is not affordable. I'm surprised you do any business at all in this city. It's totally crooked. There are millions of parking meters. There are thousands of people losing their transportation to the police department because they auction off your car for parking tickets. I don't even know how anybody can live in this city, really. It's really a crazy, crazy, crooked city. But that is not my issue. My issue is, why are we not smart enough to provide housing for everyone? What keeps us being so stupid as to keep everybody homeless? Hello? Anybody home? You have any ideas, Mr. LaBonge?
I'll meet you at the ropes over there when we're done. Thank you for your comment.
Does anybody have any ideas how we can provide housing for everyone? I have some ideas. You can read my book on the internet. It's called The United World of Free and Clear, a place where we stop being stupid and finance a place for everyone. Thank you.
Jacqueline Richardson. Is Jacqueline Richardson here? Followed by Michael Carrion and Henry Marine.
Jacqueline Richardson. This is a statement about LAPD. Some of the men in LAPD have 3 wives. Some of them have 2 wives. Whatever the number, some of them have more than 1 wife. Ask the ladies. I have to get out of here now really fast.
Henry Marine.
Yes, I'm still here waiting for the city council to account for the money withheld from the pay of city employees working under MOU 35. These MOUs show every percent the controller withheld from the prevailing wage of others than me for the last 22 years. Now, you can't have an ongoing agreement last 22 years. When are you going to go to the table? When are you going to account for the money? It sounds like I'm an indentured slave now. Where's the money, Mr. Krikorian? I gave you the paperwork showing when the Recovery and Reinvestment Act withholding money from the pay of prevailing wage employees and demanding a kickback. It's illegal. Mr. Zine, you know what I'm talking about. I gave you a copy of my claim.
Mr. President, he should be
presented on October 2nd, 2009.
His comments to the council as a whole.
Anyway, you're aware of the problem. You've been made aware of the problem. The whole council and the city attorney that's representing them. You're aware that money was diverted from the pay, sheltered from the pay of the city employees. And where is it? Who's going to account for it? You can't contribute it to a union. I can't be a deputy-defined city employee and make contributions to a union. Now, you know that's contradictory to all reasoning.
Thank you. Michael Carrion, not here. Noted and filed. John Walsh. Donna Perriman.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Go to our website now, and you will see a tape of Sunday night's Geraldo Rivera at Large show on Fox News Channel, which featured me at the Vine Street Theater. And it also features my 1-minute speech in front of this city council on June 29th, warning you that if that picture was shown, that someday there would be major violence concerning innocence of bin Laden or innocence of Muslims. In fact, nobody listened. What I'm very upset about is the attacks by certain members of this council saying that I called the picture anti-Semitic, and it wasn't anti-Semitic. The actress on the movie said on Geraldo, you can see it on my website, that the producer said to her, "We will blame it on the Jews." And because my last name is not Jewish, and neither is yours, Mr. Englander, you think that I am not a Jew. And I am, in fact, as much of a Jew as any of you. As far as the poster is concerned, when I show, and we had 85,000 hits on Friday, the Bin Laden movie poster caters to Muslims. It was a pro-Muslim movie when it was put in here, and then later it was dubbed into an anti-Islamic movie in the Middle East by Coptics. Perhaps by Coptics, definitely by Christians. And I want you to know that everything we have said, the poster, Garcetti's people said it was a figment of my imagination, the Bin Laden poster. In fact, it surfaced later that day. You sat around, you said nothing, the hate was unleashed, and the world is in flames. And if people had listened to me on May 29th, maybe the ambassador would be alive. Come to my website. It's all there, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Donna Perriman.
Yeah.
Michael, carry on.
Okay. Anyway, this Donna Perriman, tax breaks for businesses. How about breaks for the disabled, elderly, and sick who reside in the valley who wish to speak video conferencing? Miriam is celebrating the Jewish holidays. Let's make this holidays good and let's open up the video conferencing in Van Nuys. And I'm still mad that disabled people like Miriam can't come over here to speak for these meetings because you took away the video conferencing. I'm a breast cancer survivor. And I am disabled too, who went through chemotherapy and radiation. I had 6 weeks of radiation in Garcetti's jurisdiction in Hollywood. I have brittle bone syndrome and weak legs now. If you care about people with cancer, like your colleague, you would not make it so hard for people with illnesses to be here. You would not have closed the video conferencing in Van Nuys. Our mayor even would not allow ADA Disability Service to fund video conferencing on a need basis for the disabled, elderly, and people with illnesses. It's not right. You have 2 council people running for mayor. Which other one of the 2 will have the video conferencing started up? Today I came from West Los Angeles, going down Wilshire. It was horrendous. I finally got off and took the Western and took the Purple Line. Traveling on the bus or subway is a hardship for the people with disability and illnesses. You have to stand, especially on rabbit buses, no restrooms, no food, no water, and it's hard to find a seat, and rush hour traffic is terrible. I should be in Van Nuys. It's not fair for people with illnesses, the disabled, and people especially with cancer. And it's not right for Miriam that she can't get here. And lastly, I want to say I want to vote for Eric Garcetti for mayor. And let's vote for Alarcon, and I say no for Dennis Zine for controller. Let's open up video conferencing in Van Nuys now.
Yes, my name is Michael Carrion. I'm from the 14th District. Here again, I'm trying to ask my council member to pay attention. Apparently, we had a misunderstanding. He's got an employee, a new one, by the name of Julio Esperanza. And I'm tired of the 14th District being training ground. And not the 14th District, El Sereno being a training ground. Mr. Weezer has the largest turnover of employees, from a few of you have told me, in the history of the City Council. And they all started at El Sereno. And then once they learn something, they get transferred somewhere else. Once again, Mr. Huizar was in the office when he asked his Jose or Julio, ask Department of Transportation how you get from Soto Street to Huntington Drive. That's been 2 months. He still doesn't know. He called the wrong people. And now he called the right people. And now they're looking into it. And now he doesn't know. This is frustrating when you put people that don't know how to navigate the city in charge. But does he do that to bring back Broadway? Nope. He's asked me to call him when I want to speak to him when I can't work with his employees. 3 times I called you. You didn't return my call. Paul's returned it. So we do not have that line of communication open like you said there was going to be. I don't want to come up here. When I call you, I expect to speak to you. That means I've already troubled all your employees. Paul wants to take it upon himself to make the call and not give it to you, or you guys decided he would do it. So I'll come here as often as I have to and do what I got to do, and we'll see what the rebuttal is this time.
Craig, Mr. Huizar.
Mr. Carrion, you were sitting there for several hours. I was standing right next to you. You could always talk to me, sir. So, secondly, for the record, Julio Esperias on my staff is not working on the Soto Street Slope project, so I don't know where this gentleman gets his facts from.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar, for the continued effort that you do for the 14th. Craig Edgert, if that's correct, Craig, followed by Mark Reddick.
Good morning. I'm Craig Eggers. I'm a 30-year resident of Westchester Playa del Rey and chair of our Neighborhood Council Airport Relations Committee. So let's put first things first. The Neighborhood Council of Westchester Playa strongly supports modernization at LAX, including certain key improvements to the airfield, the passenger terminals, and ground transport systems. Specifically, we support Alternative 2 with Ground Transportation Alternative 9, as outlined in the LAX Specific Plan Amendment Study Environmental Impact Report released in August. This alternative would provide $10.5 billion worth of investment at LAX, creating thousands of jobs without any cost to the city fund. If you remember anything I say, please take note. Alt 2 was selected in the LAWA's EIR as the environmentally superior alternative. It's safe, operationally efficient, and environmentally responsible. This alternative also represents the highest standard of fiscal and social responsibility. Alts 2 and 9 provide cost-effective results now. This plan would save our city years of litigation and includes the most cost-effective modern choices offering the fastest return on our investment. Alts 2 and 9 provide real modernization. It's critical we make the investment to modernize passenger terminals and transport systems now, including a consolidated rental car facility and mass transit into and around LAX. Alts 2 and 9 provide the right blend of environmental and operational solutions. Alt 2, with its taxiway changes, creates a safer airfield without further impacting surrounding communities. In fact, the EIR declares that Alt 2 is the most environmentally superior and operationally efficient option. Alts 2 and 9 will create thousands of long-term jobs. So please consider yourself officially invited to our community town hall planned for September 27th, moderated by former Assembly Speaker Richard Katz. Our special guests include Maxine Waters and Councilmember Rosendahl. Thank you for doing the right thing and for supporting your community in Southern California. It's the place we call home.
Mr. Reddick.
Thank you, Acting President Labange and council members. Modernization of LAX is a critical component of expanding the economic base of Los Angeles. That being said, the Neighborhood Council of Westchester Playa strongly supports the alternatives 2 and 9 as the best route to realistic revitalization of this airport. While other alternatives do exist, they do not address both the long-term requirements of LAX while balancing the concerns of the nearby communities such as Alts 2 and 9 do. Although this issue is not on today's agenda, I would urge each council member to attend or send a representative to the town hall meeting taking place at the Westchester Magnet School on September 27th. It is expected to be a well-attended and quite an educational evening, covering many areas of this important issue. We certainly hope that you can make it. Council members, thank you for your time and thank you for all that you do. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. That completes the public comment. Madam Clerk, what's before us?
Council has motions for post and referral.
So ordered.
That clears the desk.
Any announcements, members? Let's rise for adjourning motions. Mr. Reyes.
I have one announcement. I just wanted to congratulate the warehouse workers who have been walking from the Inland Empire area 50 miles. They made their way to City Hall here today. I just want to congratulate them on their effort in amplifying the inhumane conditions many of our workers are suffering in warehouses, and how we need to address those injustices and hopefully come up with solutions that allows every worker to have a decent working condition for their families, and all they want is what America is offering, is a healthy and safe future.
Yeah, Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to announce a joint meeting held by myself and Mr. Parks Wednesday, September the 19th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It will be at the Constituent Service Center at 8475 South Vermont Avenue. We are inviting the public to join ratepayer advocate Dr. Frederick Pickle for an update on the Department of Water and Power's proposed rate increases. Questions to be answered will be: when are the increases scheduled to start? How will your water and electricity bill be affected? And how much of an increase can you expect? So that's 8475 South Vermont Avenue, Wednesday, September the 19th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Any other announcements? Mr. Garcetti?
Yes, thank you. We joined today with the City Attorney of San Francisco to announce something important to everybody and all their constituents, a settlement that the City Attorney up there got against two payday lenders, Money Mart and Loan Mart, in the neighborhood of about $7.5 million for our constituents who took loans out between 2005 and 2007 from either Money Mart or Loan Mart. You can get those loans forgiven, penalties given back. They were found in violation of sometimes charging up to 400% interest in a state where it's illegal to do so. It's actually 10 times higher than what is legal. So if you took out a payday loan between 2005 and 2007 from either of those companies, please call the hotline that we've set up. It's 866-497-5497. So that's 866-497-5497. You're entitled to that money. The people of California will get that money no matter what, but it should go to those who were preyed upon, who take out a $500 payday loan and suddenly owe $2,000. And we'll make sure that all the council offices have that information. The deadline is October 1st for putting in your claim up to $3,000. So that will be something that we'll make sure everybody has. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Adjourning motions? Members, I just wanted to add, as I spoke of last week, Ambassador Chris Stevens, also Sean Smith, Air Force veteran, Glenn Doherty, Navy SEAL, and Tyrone S. Woods, former Navy SEAL, who was on protective duty at the U.S. post in Libya. Shall we remember those? And as it was articulated by so many of our diplomats around the world serve without protection as they do their job to be the voice of the United States. Let's remember all those who lost their life in that tragedy. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.